Hey everyone, it's Reed. I have been on the road the last 3 or 4 weeks, and every time I go out, I meet more Americans who are ready to get involved in fixing this system, in repairing the damage, in mitigating the damage we're seeing. And I need you to do your part too. Please go to jointheunion.us and sign up today to be a leader in your community, to come to one of our events, to come to one of our town halls or one of our meetings, to consider being a leader in your zip code, in your county or your state, maybe even to consider running for office, something you might not have ever thought about. Go to jointheunion.us. We need your help today. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to the home front. I'm your host, Reed Galen. Today, I'm glad to be joined once again by Joe Trippi, legendary Democratic strategist, founder of Says.us, the new social media platform for sane people, no bots here, host of the podcast That Trippi Show, and senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, and all-around good guy. Joe, welcome.
Great to be with you, Reed.
So, folks aren't going to hear this probably till next week as we're recording this, but this is actually the second time in like 48 hours we've seen each other. The first time was an odyssey for both of us. We were in Sarasota, Florida together, speaking to a very nice group of people, and I want to say thanks to Shell and everybody else who had us over there. It took you as long to get from Key West, Florida to Sarasota as it did for me to get from Park City, Utah to Sarasota, Florida, just to give a sense of how crazy the weather was and everything else. But so, Joe, we had a really good conversation with these folks. They were all, I think, maybe they were moderate Republicans, conservative Democrats, a lot of independents, but all of them were sort of frustrated with the current system, and who wouldn't be? And a couple of the things that you brought up while we were talking really sort of piqued my interest. So one was that, this idea that in any democracy, any representative form of government, at some point, it's going to start breaking down because everything from the top down becomes transactional. So give us a little sense of what that means.
It's something I picked up. I read James McGregor Burns' book, Leadership, and he talked about how with democracy, when it first starts, it's very transformational. You get rid of the king, the people are in charge, it totally flips the table, and everything transforms magically and with lots of power. And then, and this is something our founders actually, when they talked about factions and were worried about it, but later on, sooner or later, the actors learn that no, it's about transacting. I'll promise you a tax cut for your vote, or we'll forgive college loans for your vote. I mean, everything becomes a transaction with the voters. And once that happens, it's sort of like a rush to the bottom, right? The bigger deal gets the votes, even if it's bullshit, phony promises that are never going to happen. And then that people get disillusioned. So you're sort of go into this doom cycle where everything becomes transactional and democracy loses its magic and loses its ability to get anything done. And so I think that's where we're at. I read this book right before the Dean campaign. And what he said was that a transformational leader emerges when they speak literally to what's deep inside people, and suddenly people who never in a million years believed they'd be leading anything spring up and start locally leading the community to follow this transformational leader that's creating all these new leaders to spring up around the country. And I think now what's happening is new leaders are springing up around the country locally because no one else has stepped up yet, but somebody will emerge out of it, I believe.
That's also part of the sort of ugliness of the transactional piece, which is as those new leaders emerge, they come with different perspectives, different ideas, different audiences, and those who do represent the transactional wing, and that's, I could call that most of Washington, D.C., they want to play whack-a-mole. They want to push all those people back down because I think in many ways, and I think, Joe, this could be on the part of the political class, and I include not just elected officials, but what I call the political bureaucracy, or all those people that sort of make Washington happen all day, every day. But also, as we see so much of like these law firms or anybody else who's rolling over, which is they're in a resource hoarding mode at this point, which is like, we've come this far, we've got this much, we'll do whatever it is we have to hold on to it, even if, one, we know that bullies never leave you alone, and two, if we know in our heart of hearts this is not better for the greater good, but it's good for us.
Yeah. exactly. But what I do think is, there's a refuse and resist thing starting to emerge locally. I think more people are realizing the threat, sort of getting beyond the hope that everything returns to normal and understanding, no, I got to do something. I've got to take action. I think new leaders are emerging. We don't see them. I mean, you only see them if you go into the community like you've been doing as you've been traveling around, or that we saw there in Sarasota, but they're everywhere. And I think you're seeing it. I mean, you're seeing it in people showing up at these rallies at town halls and peacefully protesting. And I think a lot of people are waiting. No, right. Don't wait. Run for something. Be the leader. Be that transformational leader.
I mean, you worked for Howard Dean in 2004, which I think you guys in the process scared the hell out of the Democratic establishment, right? And they ultimately worked their magic. And then you could make an argument that they tried that with Obama in 2008. It didn't work, right? Because he was just used the word transformational. He was just that much better. And then in 2015. Bernie Sanders, maybe we don't remember exactly, but I remember seeing the video of him like launching his campaign from like under a tree right behind the Capitol. Yeah. He's at 3% or whatever, which is basically zero, right? And there he is. And ultimately, like, they had to circle the wagons again because the establishment, the transactional class said, no, this isn't what we want. And they did it again in 2019 when again they thought, or 2020, excuse me, when they thought that Sanders was going to be the nominee. And Biden wins South Carolina. And all of the other quote unquote establishment candidates collapse behind Biden, right? And the rest is history. Now, do I think that Sanders could have won in 16 or 20? Who knows at this point? But the point is that immune response amongst the Democratic Party, especially, Joe, which you've always been the interloper, and I say that with all the love in the world, the immune response is very strong.
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting, though, is you saw that immune response initially against Trump.
Right.
But they quickly fell in line. In the end, it's kind of like what they all caved to was, again, someone who does not transact. It is my way or the highway. There is no transaction. It's an interesting way to try to end transactional politics is basically there will never be a transaction because the transformation is I'm taking a dictatorship. I mean, that's literally what's going on. But it will take, I believe, a transformational movement of millions of Americans against this.
Right.
That will stop it. Now, whether that's a transformational leader that takes it or it's the people who then give birth to a transformational leader, I think that's where we're headed.
It's interesting, Joe, because you can sort of see where the establishment core of the Democratic Party is very in a very similar place to where the Republican core of its own party was in 2008 with Palin, 2010 with the Tea Party, which is you keep ignoring us and we don't like it. And if you keep ignoring us, we're going to ultimately show you what we mean. And that gets you theoretically at Donald Trump. And you could make Joe, I say this with all the love in the world. Like, I've never met a group of people who dislike their own party more than Democrats, but I can't really blame you for it either, which is you keep telling your leaders what you want and they keep sort of patting you on the head and saying, no, we know what's best.
That's what I'm saying. I think that, Schumer, he's not built for this moment. And I'm not, I've been saying that. I think new leaders are emerging. There's new voices emerging. They're unknown. But they're happening. I mean, some of them, America's going to learn who these people are as they come up, and they're coming up right now. I think that change is happening. And again, it's coming from the grassroots, though. Chuck Schumer is not going to say, hey, guys, I really thought about it. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to, let somebody else take the reins. That's not going to happen. And that's another part of the transactional thing is everybody tries to hold on, which I do think was the impulse that was, like you said, the Republican Party wasn't listening, and Trump played on that. What's fascinating about this is Trump is now saying things like, I don't care if people have to go buy more expensive cars. I don't care. I mean, he's not listening because he's incapable of it. You have a whole bunch of people across the spectrum right now saying, like, basically pay attention, don't do the stuff you're doing. It's not what I was for. And he's persisting and going on anyway. He's not listening. It's very interesting to see how everything you talked about, what produced him, what I think is going to produce, transformational movement to rebuild and repair and fix democracy. I mean, that's one of the things I think that's going on is, we talked about this too, is that Democrats and pro-democracy people keep saying, we got to save democracy. But in a lot of ways, it put us in this place of defending the status quo. I mean, the system's not working. Democracy's not working for a lot of people. And we talked about this. If you replace the word democracy for the system and you asked anybody, hey, do you think the system's working? They'd say no. And so when we say no, we're basically almost saying we've got to save the system. And that's crazy. No, we have to fix it. We have to repair it. It's not working for you. But that's not how we talked about it. We talked about, he's a threat to democracy. Basically, he's a threat to the system.
Which he is. But again, if it's a system nobody wants anyway. Right?
Without talking about how it needed to be fixed, how it wasn't working for you, how we have also failed. But the time now is to fix it, to make democracy work for you. Keep your cost of living down, produce a way to make a viable living in healthcare, et cetera, not destroy it. He's the destroyer. And I think that's the other thing I think we kind of miss. He really is a destroyer. And so we can rebuild, we can fix, but fixing and repairing and reforming is not destroying. And you have a choice. And he's destroying. We're going to stop him from destroying the system that everybody thought was broken.
This is something that we talked about. So I brought this up several times, and I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's indicative, maybe to me, the most clarifying thing. So, Joe, 71% of Republicans ran unopposed in 2024. And you and I were sitting there talking about that before we did our thing the other night. And I said, I think I'm talking about this wrong, which is, if you say 71% of Republicans ran unopposed, people go, oh, that's a lot. Yeah. Here's the other way of saying it. That means that Democrats only contested 29% of the available races. That's a much more shocking and worrying number, right? Which means, wait a second, guys, we got a hell of a lot of work to do, and we got a hell of a lot of people to find and a hell of a lot of leaders. And Joe, to your point, if we go and we get that number from 71 to 50 or from 29 to 50, whichever way you want to do it, we're going to find those people just by process, if nothing else, that those people are going to start to open up. But we have to be willing to do the work to make it happen.
Yeah, that when you told that to me, I was like astonished. I mean, it's just an incredibly blunt way to put it. 29%, and that's one of the big problems that the party, I think, has always had. Its focus has always been 100% federal. The House races, the Senate races, the presidency. Those are really important things, but pretty much ignored for the most part school board, county councils, city councils, water boards. We never put any effort into it while the Republican Party was very focused on that stuff. I think we've got a great bench in a lot of places, but you're right. I think that's part of this transformational thing. You get new blood, new people out there, get them running. That's what everybody, the more active we become, the more we build a resist and refuse kind of movement to fix what's broken, not destroy it, is I think where we need to be. And I think, again, run for something, get out there, get behind somebody who's running in your community. We do have to compete and fight everywhere. And it's going to take all of us rising together across the spectrum. Look, there's a lot of things we can disagree about and argue about and fix later on. But right now, the thing that should unify every American is to not save democracy. It's to save America, save the world. I mean, this is causing a lot of damage here. A lot of people are going to get hurt here, but a lot of people around the globe are going to be hurt by what's happening right now.
I mean, a couple of things. One is, to your point about getting local. I think that there's too much being made of progressives versus moderates, right? Establishment versus outsider. I think those things matter, but I think, to your point, it matters more about spending less time up here and more time down here at the ground, right? And, we've talked about it a lot. It was like, you have to go and talk to people. And this is the other part too, is that if you run for the water board, you run for school board, you run for city council, whatever it is, those are jobs that affect actual people's lives. And if you are competent and acquit yourself well in those jobs, that when another opportunity becomes available, you can say, when I was mayor of town X, I fixed the potholes, right? Like your kids got to school on time. Whatever, take your thing, right? Because one thing that's missing is competence, right? Nobody thinks anybody could do a good job. And just as a quick aside, like the signal gate thing, do I think most people who aren't attuned to Washington politics care? I don't think they do. I think what level they do care on is, this looks like a bunch of morons, right? I thought we got rid of morons. We've got more morons, right? So that's the other part too, is it's totally okay to run against a system that, frankly, to you said, isn't working. Right. And you don't have to be for the status quo just because you said simply, well, there's a system, blah, 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 blah. Well, again, if it's not working and it's on fire, right, then Joe, if we could wave a magic wand and stop everything that's happened up to this moment as we're recording this, right, would we rebuild everything that Trump has already torn down the way he tore it down? Or would we say, wait a second, now we have an opportunity and a responsibility to say, well, maybe we should do this differently?
That is the opportunity. I mean, unfortunately, there was a better way to do this than burning everything to the ground. But the other side of that is, we rebuild it, do a better job of rebuilding it, because we're not going to be locked in that same structure. But look, I've been, whether like from Dean, the Dean campaign was totally, an effort to kind of refocus the party. But then like Seth Moulton in Massachusetts, we were taking on an incumbent, 18-year incumbent. You don't do that in a party. The party, they
right,
circle
they get real
the wagons.
upset. Right.
Yeah, and they get really ticked. And the same thing when I did Ro Khanna against Mike Honda out in California. He was, again, in other words, running against an incumbent. And the establishment, just rolls in and doesn't change. It entrenched the transaction. They don't want you beating their guys. And so it's kind of one of these weird things where, like, in a lot of ways throughout my career, it was about trying to fix the system or trying to make it change. But what I'm saying is, what strikes me now is how I didn't see, or I couldn't articulate this before the 2024 election. As much as I read James McGregor Burns' book, as much as I had railed to try to change the system that I didn't think was working for people, or get my party to focus on that, I didn't see that we were being seen as now protecting the status quo, protecting the system that desperately needed to be improved, to be fixed, to be rebuilt. Instead, he's opened the door to destroying it.
That's one thing I've been thinking about too, which is, you talk about rebuild America, save America. Like, we have to also rebuild the belief in the country. I don't think we believe in ourselves. And if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in what matters, if you don't believe that the system either A, works, or B, works for you, then you do open the door for a vampire like Trump. And people are willing to invite him in because it's change, Joe, right? At least he's doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most dangerous thing, is that, democracy finally dies when the people lose faith in their own power, as their power is slowly being taken away from them.
Right.
By the likes of what Trump's doing right now. And so I think that's what we have to talk to people about right now. Right. You talked about this the other night, that now's not the time to go, as tariffs and all this other stuff are going on, and the economy's getting wrecked. This is not the time to run to somebody in MAGA side that you haven't talked to in a while and start admonishing them that they're wrong. See, we told you so. This is not the time to do that. It's actually an opportunity here, because that'll just push them deeper into the abyss.
So I got a text from a friend of mine this morning, Joe, 7:44 a.m. Quote, and this is a guy who's been Trump adjacent. If we were going to have a conversation about how Trump is impulsive and reckless and probably dangerous for the general order of things, ... this morning might be a good time, just saying. And I wrote back, ha, right? Like, because this is the same guy who 2 weeks ago told me I was suffering from Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah. But that's why the response to that isn't, I told you so,
Right.
you idiot. It's to say, maybe we should talk about this because I'm concerned too.
Right.
It's more that. It's just, there's a real opportunity, I think. Look, there's some of them that are lost forever, and there's nothing,
But they're the same people who came out of the woods for Trump. They don't like Republicans. They don't like anything, right? They hate everything, which is why they were so attracted to him.
That's what I'm talking about. There's the sea change that can happen because of what each one of you can do. Talking to one person at a time in your local community, urging somebody to run or running or just reaching out your hand. I mean, one of the things we did in the Dean campaign was we literally every Saturday in like 1,000 communities, we had a local cleanup day, and we invited everybody in the neighborhood to go. And we didn't wear our Dean stuff or anything. It was just literally a bunch of people doing something together in the neighborhood every Saturday. It's stuff like that we need to do again.
I mean, we're doing that with the union, which we're like, what we're asking people to do is apolitical. It's get involved in your community. There's a young woman named Kat Abu-Ghazala. She's running for Congress in Chicago, I believe in the 8th district there. She's going to take on let's just put it this way. A woman who's been in office longer than Kat's been alive. But one of her first campaign events was there was a women's shelter who needed feminine hygiene products. Kat said, don't bring money, don't bring anything. Bring me whatever it is you have. Bring whatever you can afford to buy and bring it so we can get it to those people. Like, I think that is a hell of a lot more impactful to individual voters to say, oh, you're not just here about I'm going to come to your event. I'm going to bring this thing. And then 10 minutes later, I'm going to get, hey, thanks for coming. By the way, could you chip in $8?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's the same thing. I mean, like veterans need help right now. I mean, so, if there's a local center in your area, it's more, what's your passion? What is something you care about? Education, veterans, children. It's to engage in your community, get as many people to help you with that as possible. Whether it could be a school board race, yes, but it could also just be, again, a veteran center that's being shut down right now or something like that. That's, I think, the way to start reaching out to forget about the politics of it and forget about, I told you so, you idiots, that kind of stuff. No, we've got to build an American movement. It's not a Democrat, Republican, or, even autocracy versus democracy. It's a movement for the country where we all come together with a single purpose, and that's to keep the damn lights on for another 250 years while we continue to fix it, because there are all kinds of problems wrong with it from the beginning. We got that. We fixed a lot of them,
right? But
they need to be improved, and we need to get more directly helping people that do feel rightly that they were left behind by this transactional politics that developed over the last 30, 40, 50 years.
Well, the burn it down politics, as we are literally seeing as we're recording this, Joe, which is, look, if you're in the top 1% of the population, you're going to figure it out, right? If you're anybody else, what we're seeing now with, not even the tariffs themselves, but the blast wave, the shock wave in the financial system that is coming from this and is going to come from overseas, is going to harm people at every level of the country. You noted this too, at people around the world. And, I was thinking about this. There's a recording I did earlier today with a guy from Florida. He's up in Tallahassee. What happens to places, where, tourism, foreign tourism is a massive component of that, right? And if there aren't tourists in Florida, like, what the hell else are you doing? So much of the economy is built around that, especially in a state with no income tax. And so these things are going to ripple out and ripple out and ripple out. And here's the thing, even if Trump, gets on the stump tomorrow and says, never mind, it's all, forget about it. Right now, like, people are like, well, now I just got whipsawed that way. And now you were just kidding. It's like when I was talking to one of the women in Sarasota, I was like, oh, hurricane season. She's like, half the time, she's like, people don't even leave anymore. Sometimes they don't even board up their houses. They're sort of like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I feel like that's sort of like with Trump, like the hurricane's always just offshore, Joe, about to make landfall. And it either goes right, left, or it crushes everything in your path, right?
This is one of those things where it's out of control now. In other words, what I mean is he launched it. the entire world is not going to react the same way. Like some leader out there is going to say, go to hell.
As the Canadians and the Mexicans have already done.
That's what I'm saying. And that helps them in their talk about the transaction. That transaction works for them politically, in their country. So that means some of them are going to retaliate. Maybe most of them. I don't know. We don't know the answer to that. This guy who believes he controls everything, because when he tells the party to jump, they jump. When he tells law firms to jump, they jump. And he just told the world, basically, what I say goes. I'm imposing all this pain on you,
right?
And you're just going to take it, or you're going to cave to me. Well, some of them will cave, I'm sure, but they're not so worried about MAGA in their district primarying them out in these places, so it's not going to work.
And let me just stay in North America for a second, because you got the Mexican president who's like, bring it on. You need this a lot more than we do, right? Like, you take a lot more from us than we take from you. And then you've got the Canadians, who we do have a massive bilateral economic relationship with, but the Canadians are like, F you. Like, like everybody's here like, oh, I'm willing to accept the pain. I think the Canadians are like, oh no, like if we have to accept pain to show this guy, like we'll do it. Right. I mean, the Labor prime minister was basically like, we're ending formal ties on all these different things. And the Canadians are like, good. Yeah, we don't want you anyway. And if you haven't spent any time with Canadians, they are some of the nicest, kindest, most decent people. But they're sort of like the Marines in that way, Joe, right? They are the best of friends and the worst of enemies. To make a Canadian mad, you have to go so far afield of normalcy, right?
Yeah.
But once they've set their jaw, right, this is a group of people who live near the Arctic Circle and play hockey outside all year, right? Like, they're not afraid of you.
In a lot of ways, his enablers in the party have gotten him to a point where he believes if he says it, they fall in line. And I just don't think that's not how the world works. It may be how the Republican Party now, the Trump Party now works, but it's not how the world works. It may be how he can, and he's got the levers of the American government to put a lot of fear from DOJ and other places into a company or into the press or, whatever. But if his lever to control these countries is, I'm going to up the tariff pain on you, our economy is going to suffer a lot. Yeah, the world economy is going to suffer a lot. I don't know how anybody, he's not doing that for any of the working people out there. That's not going to, any of us.
No, it was interesting, too, that I saw some MAGA apologist on one of the clips, and she's like, well, this is reversing the last 40 years of, the hollowing out of the industrial base of the United States, et cetera, basically like neoliberalism. Like, that's not what this is. First of all, if you put a shovel in the ground today, maybe you'd have a factory, Joe, in 2 years, right? And what the hell, you're making widgets? Right. Like, so, it's just ridiculous on its face, but it's fascinating how they're trying to double down on this sort of economic populism thing, when in fact, it's just insanity.
No, but like the chip industry was moving here right after COVID. They started like, hey, we can't rely on these supply chains. We're going to move. We can't rely on Taiwan. We got to move. Even Taiwan was moving its chips manufacturing to the United States. It was all happening. Of course, I don't know what the MAGA folks were talking about, Biden's Chip Act or whatever, because I'm sure there was something communist about it or something. That's my point. But that's all happening. The ground's broken in Ohio and in Arizona on major
Idaho, I think, too.
Investment. Yeah. And a lot of it red states. And so, you're now putting, I don't know what percent of tariff on the countries that, to move chip manufacturing to the United States. It was already happening. There's no reason to inflict this crap on the world, on working people. And I still can't believe when Donald Trump gets to the point where he'll say out loud, I don't care how much people have to pay for cars. I don't care. I'm doing this. Every American who hears that ought to think about that sentence a little bit, because it doesn't care about who's picking the crops out there. I can tell you that. And, and what's coming in from Mexico, it's going to be more expensive. Canada, as you point out, Europe, I mean, by the way, these are all our allies,
Right.
all of them. And there were ways to fix this. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You could have had a trade deal. I mean, first of all, part of the trade deals he's railing against were his trade deals that he made when he was in office. And it's in a lot of ways maybe as predictable as it is scary,
Right,
that he was going to get to this place because he was just so, I mean, he wants to be Orban. He wants to be a strong man. He wants to throw his weight around and get his way. And I just think a lot of people are going to be out of work, having a rougher time paycheck to paycheck than they're already having, which is not the whole reason a lot of those people voted for him, was hoping that he would actually make it, would lower costs, would make it easier for them to make it paycheck to paycheck. That's going to get a lot worse for a lot of people.
And I saw this clip of the woman who's the agriculture secretary. She was doing a tour of Iowa, Joe, and she said, "Well, I've just been on the phone as we're negotiating these things, and if the tariffs hurt farmers, then we're going to do things to make sure that the farmers get paid back." And I'm like, wait. So you're causing all this trouble to harm, just in this instance, farmers, so that we can then jack the deficit that you have been running against and ran up by giving more money to the farmers who you hurt in the first place. Okay, now I understand why they look like Chevy Chase in Saturday Night Live in 1976 saying, "I was told there would be no math."
They learned that trick in 2016 because those first tariffs, when they hurt farmers, they did the subsidies for farmers big time and ran up the deficit. So they learned that trick. The problem is, so they're just doing it again.
Right.
Maybe that bought the farmers off. I don't want to put it in those terms, but basically maybe they got farmers, that got their ire back to normal instead of being pissed at them. But okay, you got to do that across every single industry on the planet now.
Right.
And in the meantime, the deficit is just going to go. Well, but then they have the new theory that the dollar is going to be so weakened that it'll be easier to deal with the deficit.
But isn't that inflationary? Isn't that like we're cheapening the value of the dollar in the first place so it doesn't cost us as much to pay for? Like, again, none of this is responsible.
No, that's my point. But it's so circular. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's like another one of those, like, no, don't pay attention to the tariffs over here. Pay attention to how this is, and it doesn't add up. It won't add. Even the way they calculated the tariffs was like, no one's figured that out. Yeah, ridiculous.
It's allowing me to do the math, which no one should do. One thing, I posted this silly little video yesterday, Joe, but I call it Messaging 101. These are Republican tariffs. These are not Trump tariffs. These are not Musk tariffs. These are Republican tariffs. Guys, do not give Trump and Musk, don't give Republican office holders and Republican politicians these guys to hide behind. Make them answer for it. Make them answer for why they're for this. And you're going to do one of two things. They're in a box canyon. Either they're going to go deeper into the canyon because they're afraid, or they're going to come out of the box canyon and they're going to have $10 million of Elon Musk primary money against them. Like, find ways to catch them in between, to leave them no place to go. Now you see like Chuck Grassley and some, I don't know who the Democrat, maybe Maria Cantwell from Washington, like they're going to, tariffs have to be approved by Congress except for, 60 days. Like, first of all, is Thune ever going to let that come to the floor, right? The majority leader. And is Johnson ever going to let that come to the floor if somehow passed the Senate? And the answer is no. And then Trump could just veto it anyway, right? So like now you show up because now Grassley's like 9,000 years old. And now he's like, oh God, the farmers in Iowa are getting screwed. Well, I guess I better show up now. It's like too little, too late. You had your chance. You guys have had your chances time and time again. And now, Joe, the only reason they care is because money is on the line, not because decency or the common man or anything else. It's because the amounts of money that people that control significant financial institutions are now like, you guys better get your guy under control. And they're like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, get him under control. Right. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, okay.
Let me just say this, and then I want to get to one last thing before I let you go, is, this is the thing, too, about the people who are inextricably tied to the system, i.e., federally elected officials, will feel none of this, right? They have gold-plated health care. They have gold-plated pensions. Trump is getting God knows what from God knows who overseas, right? These crypto scams that are going to funnel millions, tens of millions, billions of dollars to him. He doesn't care. He's not going to care. None of this is ever going to harm him. And the Supreme Court gave him the get out of jail free card. And so again, I think to your point about whether or not it's Putin or Orban or Erdogan or any of those people, and if you guys have not read, if you guys have not read Autocracy Inc. by Anne Applebaum, she explains it all in this book. Literally, guys, I think it's like 130 pages. Everything she wrote, everything Anne wrote in this book is literally coming true.
The gears are so in motion,
right?
Because of how they empowered him, how they gave him more and more power and stopped standing up to him, that he, that there's nobody, even the business community now. I mean, Wall Street, I don't think he gives a damn about what the Dow's doing.
No.
And that's the other thing. The scary part is because of the crypto stuff, we have no idea. If you talk about what's, transactional politics, the amount of money that's awash in his Trump coin and everything else, we know that a lot of the tech bros would love to see crypto replace the dollar.
Oh, I know.
And that's why the whole reserve thing. No, there's a reason they want to weaken the dollars.
Right.
It's not to make it easier to deal
Pay
with
off
the
debt.
deficit. That's not what it's about, guys.
Right. All right. So speaking of holding truth to power and building something new, so I have been talking to the folks here at the home front about Says Us for months now, but you are the chief cook and bottle washer of Says Us. You are the CEO. You are the founder. Tell us about it. Tell everybody why they should join and what makes it different from the other platforms out there that just become, completely awash in disinformation like Twitter or become echo chambers. Tell us why we should get involved.
Basically, every single social network out there is doing grave danger to the community to trust. The entire apparatus of the algorithm in X, Facebook, all of them, is the more people are engaged at fighting at each other and angry and screaming at each other, the more engagement there is, the more they can sell ads. And so they keep revving that up. When they ask you for your email to sign up, remember, it's great. It's easy. Give them your email. Got it. The problem with that is anybody out there can create 10,000, 100,000 Google emails, sick 100,000 bots, Russians, whatever, onto that platform, and then start telling one community that this other community hates your guts and they're coming to get you, and vice versa, and we all at each other's throats. That's been going on. That's actually what helped Trump get to where he is. And the MAGA movement and him and the folks around him were excellent beyond words at driving that divide. And then, of course, with Elon buying X and you got Zuckerberg over there at Meta, it just put it on steroids.
Right.
So remember this: if it's free, you're the product.
Right.
That's what. If it's free, they're selling you. They're selling your eyeballs. That's what's going on. It Says Us. It's a platform, social network that's built specifically to keep bots out. We require a cell phone number, a valid cell phone number. Why? I know, I don't want to give Trippi my cell phone number. You're not giving it to me. I'll never see it. But it does prove that, somebody out there would have to buy 10,000 valid mobile phone accounts and pay them every month to have 10,000 bots on the network. So we create all these barriers to getting bots on. We downvote anonymous name calling, and we raise up with the community in our algorithm insightful, verified news, important arguments, etc. So it's a we call it a civic place for human beings.
Right.
And it's a pro-democracy. No other. This will always. Why can't the New York Times say we're a pro-democracy newspaper?
Because they want to sell newspapers no matter what regime is in power.
Well, Says Us is a pro-democracy social network. We're building a pro-democracy distribution information hub. We need Americans who care about the country, who are civil, who want to be citizens in a country that's working together and want to build a pro-democracy movement. We're all gathering at Says Us. We're in the Apple store for iPhones and the Google store for Android devices. this really is, and it's not about says us. It's about the whole thing we're trying to build here, both at the union, says us. Find one more friend, one coworker, one family member, and get them to join. Get them to join says us. Get them to join the union. Get them to listen to the podcast. Get them to join the pro-democracy, the movement to save the country. And to keep the lights on for another 250 years. We have the vote. We have the ability to change these schmucks out.
And to demand more of the people we would elect.
Yeah, and expect more, demand more. And says us is a place where we're trying to build that community and give you the tools to get active. That's going to be on the network as well. We're building it right now, but it's since we got in the app stores, we're really rapidly growing. And I hope you'll check us out and ask your friends to join us.
Right, and I'm there. And in full disclosure, I am also an investor.
I'll be very very straight about this. Like back when we started this about a year ago, I wrote a $75,000 check, right, and I thought I was taking it into my backyard and burning it in a trash can. But damn it, I was going to do something.
We were going to keep warm, if nothing else.
Yes, I was going to do something to create a challenge to the networks that Elon and Zuckerberg and these guys are building that are ruining us.
Right.
I reached out to good friends like Reed, and he went and burned a check in his backyard. But a year later, and I wish we'd done it 2 years ago, so we might have made an impact in the last election. But a year later, it is growing. Tens of thousands are joining us. It is about us all having our place that's safe, where, yes, hey, there is disagreement going on. It's really fascinating. But it's all super civil.
You can go on and learn more, but there's a system of reputation where, if I want to comment on something, Joe, you say, then I have to give up my reputation points. And the more that people like something you say or something you post, the more of those reputation points you earn, but you can also burn them off by being a jerk. But, it's funny, says us has become a couple of things for me. Obviously I post this stuff, but it's also where I've started posting my airport observations, which people tend to like.
Right.
But also the I don't even know her name, but the woman who's always at the top of my feed, Joe, she provides regular national weather updates, right, all the time about what's going on. And you and I had to personally experience the effects of those coming from travel. It's fascinating to be like, that's the first thing when I open the app, that's the first thing I see is like, okay, that's interesting. And you know what? It's not an echo chamber. It's not something I would have expected to see, but I appreciate it. I also get enough people who respond to me when I talk about Texas Longhorn football or whatever other silly thing comes into my head. So, and I'll tell you this, the rest of them are, there's Instagram and TikTok and all that, but those are means to an end, right? Like Says Us gives me a place where I can actually go and like say the silly thing, right? Because I just feel like it. Twitter, everybody's got an opinion. Blue Sky, everybody agrees. Like I'm not looking for that, right? Like if I was looking for that, then, I'd talk to my dog because I know he'll always agree with me.
No, it's been pretty cool to watch because it's not all politics and what's in the news. But when we do have real information to distribute, there's some really good people like Reed, Dan Gilmore, Dave Troy, and others who I think are real important to read, real important to understand what's going on out there. And so we're building it. I hope you'll help us build it. Thanks, Reed, for bringing it up and for being an early supporter from the get-go when it was just a glint.
Right. No, look, I think this, the same kinds of people there are on Says Us that I want to have on this program, right? And Joe, we have legends and superstars like you, but we have a lot of folks too who are not as well known. But what I try and do is make sure that whoever it is I'm talking to is the best at what they do. That doesn't mean they're the most famous at what they do. It means that could I find somebody who knows their subject matter better? And usually the answer is no. And that's why, I love the kind of stuff that we're doing because, again, these are going to be the voices that matter. These are the voices that are going to carry us into the future. And they're the voices that are typically putting themselves, their personal lives, their professional lives, everything on the line for something much bigger than themselves.
And one of the things I just want to point out is the kind of people like Adam Kinzinger came on immediately and has started posting. And then emailed and said, "Hey, can I be an advisor? I want to be on the advisory board and help you grow this thing." So it's a very broad-based group of people. Let's really discuss how to make things better, give people the tools to take this on and fight the fight. And that's what we're doing over there. So
right.
Thanks a lot.
So go to says.us, guys, sign up today. Guys, if you have not tuned into, please go to That Trippi Show. Joe and his guy, his number one person, Alex Shashlow, who I have been in this business a long time. Alex is one of the, if not the smartest individual I have ever met. His insights, his encyclopedic knowledge for a guy who is much younger than me, right? Which makes me upset because how is he so darn smart?
You're not the only one.
So, guys, listen to That Trippi Show. You can find Joe on social media, but please find him on Says Us. You can always find me, guys, on all the social media networks. Go to my Substack, the home front. Joe, I think you've got a Substack now too, Joe Trippi. Guys, go to those places, sign up there. Let's get the message out. Let's grow the community. We can do this. We will do this. And Joe, thanks for joining me today.
No, thanks, Reed. It's always great to be with you.
And everybody else, we'll see you next time.